Billions of years had passed since the birth of Earth. The violence had diminished, but the planet was still unrecognizable. Impacts were no longer as frequent, but their scars remained etched across the surface. Massive craters, distorted regions, a past still visible everywhere. There were no oceans. There was no life. There was no sign of calm, only fire and chaos. A world shaped by extreme forces. A world where nothing lasted for long. And yet, even in this infernal landscape, something extraordinary was already beginning to happen. Over time, Earth began, slowly, to lose heat. The heat trapped since its violent formation, and from constant collisions, was gradually escaping into space. Energy being released, little by little, over millions of years. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, the planet began to cool. The surface was no longer entirely an ocean of magma. In some regions, molten rock began to harden, forming the first solid structures. Thin, fragile, unstable. The first surfaces appeared, only to be destroyed again. They cracked. They sank. They melted once more. A continuous cycle of formation and destruction. Nothing was stable yet. Earth remained restless, pulsing with internal energy. A world still in constant transformation. Meanwhile, the planet's interior remained extremely active. Deep layers of incandescent material moved slowly beneath the surface. Massive currents, invisible, yet powerful. Pressure built up, energy accumulated, and then it was released violently. Volcanoes dominated the landscape. Colossal eruptions occurred everywhere. Fountains of lava burst onto the surface. Gases were released into the forming atmosphere. Water vapor, carbon dioxide, methane, ammonia. These gases began to accumulate around the planet, creating a thick layer, hot, dense, and highly toxic. Sunlight could barely penetrate it. The sky was not blue. It was dark, heavy, oppressive. Earth's sky was being born. And then, something began to change. As the planet continued to cool, the water vapor in the atmosphere slowly began to condense. Dense clouds covered the sky completely. Thick, dark, heavy with moisture, blocking light, trapping heat, setting the stage for a decisive transformation. And for the first time in the planet's history, it began to rain. Not for days, not for years, but for millions of years. An endless rain, violent, unrelenting, falling upon a still hot world. Water struck the incandescent surface, evaporated instantly, rose again into the atmosphere, and fell once more. A continuous cycle, repeated countless times, slowly shaping the planet. Over time, the surface finally cooled enough. Water no longer evaporated immediately, and it began to remain, slowly accumulating, filling depressions, forming basins, connecting regions, creating vast liquid expanses, oceans, deep, primordial, dynamic, and still unstable. A planet once dominated by fire was now beginning to be dominated by water. But Earth was still far from being habitable. The atmosphere contained no oxygen. Toxic gases filled the air. The surface constantly released heat and vapor. Violent storms swept across the planet without rest. Powerful winds churned the newly formed oceans. Lightning tore through the skies relentlessly, releasing enormous amounts of energy. Solar radiation struck the surface without protection. There was no ozone layer. No natural barriers. It was an extreme world, unstable, hostile, and yet profoundly transformed. In the primordial oceans, something silent was beginning to happen. Far from the storms, beneath the restless surface, a new kind of process was underway. Liquid water, now abundant, became the ideal environment for chemical interactions. Elements dissolved and traveled through the oceans. Minerals from Earth's interior, mixed with compounds delivered from space. Heat rose from the depths. Energy came from lightning, radiation, and the still active planet itself. And in this extreme environment, simple molecules began to meet, to combine, to transform. Chemical reactions unfolded continuously. Some vanished quickly. Others persisted. Increasingly complex structures began to emerge. Invisible, yet fundamental. The planet was no longer changing only on the outside. Something was beginning to change. At a microscopic level, for the first time, Earth provided all the essential conditions. Liquid water, energy, and the right elements. The scenario was complete. The stage was set for something that had never existed before. Earth was no longer a world of fire, nor just a planet of water. It was a world in transition. Beneath the oceans, invisible forces continued to move. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, the surface would begin to transform once again. And for the first time, parts of Earth would begin to rise from the oceans. In the next episode, we will follow the birth of the first continents, the moment when Earth began to take shape.